Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central. I will at this moment be doing two things at once. So I always like to start my lives by saying that because I have to do stuff after I start recording. I have to type. I'm joined this evening in this live by BZ Rieger and Lisa Flamino Rush, my gal pal posse. And this is Decoding the Presidential Address, and this one will be part 2. I just put out part 1A, Lisa weighs in. And so this one is part 2, and I just hit the go live button on YouTube. So hopefully I've done it right. And we are actually live.
According to my notes on the screen, we are.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah, it says live on YouTube.
Well, I wanted to make sure, and I have to go over here and make sure that, because it goes live on, okay, there we go, and a separate page for me, but I have to then shut it down so I don't see it. I'm going to go over here and pick up the stream to see who all, we have one watching, awesome. Welcome, whomever you are.
Well, I'm alive anyways, I don't know.
Oh, you're funny, and you're watching too.
Which is nice.
Yeah, instead of just lollygagging around.
I try not to loll or gag around.
No, that's true. There's no lollygagging in your corner. So this is Decoding the Presidential Address Part 2. And as I said, I got my gal pal posse in tow. And I want to say this, we have 4 people watching. And oh, great. Bailey Lane said she just finished part 1. Yay.
I just want to clarify one thing. This is Decoding the Presidential Address 3/11/2020.
Yes, I typed
because
it.
we will be doing this. So
yes,
it's important to put this particular date on this particular one.
I will when I actually go back. I honestly typed it in shorthand like that because I was typing.
No, I can't read that. I'm just saying there will be others. So this is this one, not the one that's going to be in 4 or 5 days or whatever.
Oh, I'm
see. I'm just saying that was the video that just came in, so I'm just relaying what I'm told.
Okay, I got you. Okay, so that's actually a precog that you're offering up there, which these two ladies, let me just say, these 2 ladies are really good at the precog. So for those of you who are not sure, that's precognition. I want to say, please, if you are joining us, Fawn and Bailey, there's one other person out there. You could do me a great favor, and that is share this out. Because I didn't create an event or set it up on the YouTube page that it was going live. It would be great if you guys wanted to share it out on your own Facebook pages or however else you feel called to do. That'd be great. And so
you can do it on my Facebook page too, because it'll allow anybody to do that.
Oh yeah, okay. So if there's a way to share the live, see, I don't know. I know there's a way to create watch parties and all this kind of stuff. And if I knew how to do that, I would.
Yeah.
But seeing as how I don't, I guess I can't. No. So we only got to paragraph 5, and like I said, this is part 2. Lisa and I did a very short video just before this live, for those of you who may be wondering, because she wasn't with us last night. And that one's called 1A, Lisa weighs in. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Right. And I just want to, I think maybe a good way to start this one is an overview sense again of these things. And one of the things that came to mind. And I just asked Lisa for a moment because I hadn't a chance to watch the video that you did, to give me a short version of her overview. So as Lisa was talking, she mentioned a few words, a few things that she had been, asking people might want to play with, in how when they were printing it out and reading it out loud, or doing it together with other beings and stuff. And one of the things that kind of clicked up for me as you were talking about how the piece, along the lines of what Sheila and I were saying last night, the piece is a coded, it's a code, and it's a coded transmission. But so absolutely. And I also wanted to say, because it's multidimensional, and this follows through pretty much is kind of a caveat. It really should be, it should be on everything. It's that it's coded on many levels. So in here, there are codes energetically, frequency-wise, expansion-wise, consciousness-wise, ascension-wise, directive-wise, warning-wise, linear-wise, military-wise, researcher-wise, rat bastard-wise, all that kind of stuff. So there are codes. Okay, so this is interesting. So there are codes as in a layer of one of those codes that you would be picking up, and it's, as all things, this is just a very evident one. It's a living energetic envelope. So it is something that keeps morphing and mutating is not the right word, but transmutating, and as more and more come into contact with it. So in other words, this document, as it come into contact for people, whether they hear the actual speech, whether they read this document, wherever they're getting it from, whether they're encountering it through this or other beings who are doing something similar to this, all of that connection, that meeting of, actually takes the power of this document and the energetic coding and trinity that's embedded in it even further. So as we've talked about a lot, that each being's role and how they do something for themselves, and waking up themselves, or expanding themselves, or raising their consciousness for themselves, as they do, we'll say, this one step, this one component of that could be absolutely personally you're thinking to you, it affects the all. Okay, so it's quantifiable. You can see that it kind of, affects this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing. So if you take that same premise, and with this document, because it's doing that in an infinity squared way, through a triality focus is what I'm seeing. It actually, it has a level of magnitude of jump factor as each being comes into contact. So is receiving the code, decoding the code, and inserting their decoded codes into it, so that it can then branch out. So maybe you might have the analogy of that it's now able to translate that many more languages, or transfer that many more gigs of data, or transmit that many more generations of, if you're breeding a plant or something, and you try a cross between two different kinds of Asiatic lilies or something, and you get the seeds from that, and that babies has certain flowers, and then you can cross them again and you get that. So it's doing, on that level, it's doing that as well. So one way to put it is that the amount of timeline, not the right word, just place of a timeline jumping that occurs within this goes forward. So outcomes, paths, plans, unfoldings keep jumping as if, remember we were looking for a picture a minute ago and I said, well, in relative terms, it was a very old picture. It probably was photographed 8 days ago, but you know, because they, so this is a good, that kind of was a good example of what's happening with this document, because the evolutionary force is so fast and so hyper accelerated that the iterations around the, we'll just stick with the planet for a minute because it goes beyond that, but the iterations that go through, that have gone through the planet since the moment that this was given voice to, and then, you know, turned into a transcript, and then just as an example was put on the IEV and we were playing with it, is of an enormous magnitude of magnification. So it isn't just, you know, once times 10 or 1,000, right? And it's just like the scale of a earthquake where the magnitude, so a 1 and a 2 isn't just, you know, twice as, 2 is not twice as big as a 1. It's exponentially more so.
Right. It feels to me like what you're describing is actually, well, and Lisa alluded to it as well in our conversation just prior to meeting here with you. Lisa described it as sacred geometry. And as you were describing that there, and this applies actually to the triality portions, okay? Like we have talked about this before, the three of us, each one of us represents a trinity, a triality.
So
the three of us together are actually, well, in the simplest terms, we're 9, but exponentially speaking, magnitudes greater than that, right, and gives a whole new meaning for me in these moments of now, based on what you just said and the videos, as you call them, that came in for me in regards to that. Tesla's words about to understand the universe, understand the frequency of 3, 6, and 9.
Yes.
And what I also saw in when you were speaking on that, BZ, and coupled with what Lisa said about the sacred geometry, this document feels very Fibonacci spiral, if you will, which is an exponentially ripple effect that you were alluding to as well.
Yes, because it's not an endpoint. So some may think, okay, a bunch of someone's sat down, wrote this thing, vetted it in the whole linear thing with the presidential announcement, blah, 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 blah. Okay, then he sits there, you know, cameras are rolling, teleprompter's on, he reads the thing, 9 minutes and 32 seconds, I think is the runtime on it. Boom, that's done, it's printed out, okay, pass it around. That's it. It's a static, dead document. And nothing, absolutely nothing, could be further from the reality of that, because that's never the case with anything. But in these moments, at the convergence of these moments, particularly, it's a convergence. Okay, that's very interesting. Huh, okay. So particularly at these moments, it's a convergence of dark to light. So let me try to just say one thing first before I go to all the other things that I was just telling you to say.
They're coming in a bit fast and furious over there, I can tell.
Yeah. So I'll preface what I'm about to say that this document really isn't at all about the beer virus. That's just a metaphoric thing. Okay, so I just want to preface that. But one of the lead things that came in to say is this if you're holding this, if this document coming in, or the premise of this document being delivered, right, was for the beer virus, okay, it's not, it's a living thing. And so it is in actuality, and I wish I hadn't stopped myself because I forgot there was a phrase that I was given to say, but it is real-time exponential transformation and transfiguration of dark to light, because the original beer virus had an intention behind it, and had an intent and certain outcomes and certain kind of a plan for that, right? And we'll just to linear terms, so that was dark intent.
Right.
And because those frequencies simply are not supported and won't hold, it got inverted, you know, in a reverse of all the inversion that the Illuminati does and everything, right? And so then it opened up all of these channels. And I'm not quite get all the pieces together so that I can say it in a way that's coherent, but that piece is very important, because in the unwinding and unbinding, there aren't sides.
Right.
There aren't us and thems. There aren't good, there's energy. You know, there are roles that have been played and frequencies carried, right? And polarities of, and negatively polarized and positive, right? But it's a whole. So in order to have the unwinding and unbinding on the whole scale of all of Saoirse's multiverses in existence, it must come to that pinpoint, that pivot point, the not quite accurate, but the cosmic, the multiverses cosmic seed point or pinpoint, which means that it has to come to a place where that dark and light, that this and that whole is whole, or goes back to that. So if you took the picture of the Big Bang and it went and it goes out, in order to unwind and unbind it all, it must go back to that point, and simultaneously, so at the exact instant, it must then go out again in the whole new beginning. Does that make sense? So because creation and destruction are simultaneous.
Right. Well, I say this all the time. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It simply moves in and out of form. And that is, for me, what life in general is. Period. All life, regardless of how one holds it. Actually, even things that we think are inanimate objects are in and of themselves energy. When you get down to the smallest molecule, it's all moving, it's all energy. And so what you're saying is so. And our moment to moment, well, part of it is the programming and conditioning that we've all subjected ourselves to. You know, all the unlearning we need to do. That tells us that it's not.
Right.
So
And
I think that's what you're saying.
yeah, and and the so because this document, yes, you know, has part of the beer virus as a point of focus, kind of as a marketing tool. Cover, I mean, there's lots of ways you could describe it. It's just, you know, in a simple way, is it's really not about that, but it's a good, you know, it's a good ploy for that. But in doing that, in representing that, in that as a metaphor for all of it and disseminating it, it gets all to the focusing of that moment. They don't have to know per se about dark and light. They don't have to know that, you know, the origins of the actual beer virus before it started to mutate. They don't need to know about that. But it is so, and because of that, it can then come, and all of the expansion can then multidimensionally come from this document, and all of this transpires. And that's what we're going to, you know, keep going with what we started last night, is where you can actually, if you meet this with your multidimensionality embraced, because it's always there, it's just a matter of embracing it and not shunting it away, you can see, sense, and feel all of this. In fact, it's telemetry that meets your sensory array that then lights up the different components of it, avenues, veins, threads, ops, and the codes that we talked about on those different levels for you to see. And they will keep on. So like you may have a signal, as if someone is sending a beacon or something, and they send a signal out. And there could be a signal that it continuously pulses as X number of spaces in between pulse and whatever. But what I'm saying is, so yes, this does this, but because it is a living organism itself, it's a living, sentient, coherent structure. That pulse that it sends out is continually reforming, reconfiguring.
Well, you're describing too, BZ, for me, every one of our conversations, because they are energetic envelopes.
Right.
Yeah.
That as others join, hear, listen, participate, add to, even though they might not be doing it in what we might think of as real time, it is still a living entity in and of itself.
Right.
That's the, you know, of course, again, that's, we have to look at our multidimensionality. At least I can tell you one in.
Yeah. You reminded me of, well, it's nature, it's how things work. And when they were first working with electricity, they were doing like this steady current thing, and it didn't work. And then they were like, well, wait a minute, you know, by observing nature, so we breathe in, we get something, and then we exhale and we give something. And so when you were speaking on this being a living thing, I was thinking about, yeah, it is informing me, and it is informed by me because I'm connecting with it. And that kind of reminded me of that part where he said, and working with the I forget where it is, but he's mentioned working with the allies and then also the public partners, and or private, excuse me, partners.
Yeah, paragraph 3.
And thank you. And as those of us who engage it, that is our participation. So we get we get informed, and then we inform it with our energetics. And you could see how that exponential growth would then happen, because we are contributing a piece of our gifts, our information. And so it will then, because it's there to support us, kind of like the planet. You know, when I noticed that the earth will respond to my presence, when I was sat in the earth, I realized a certain specific weed was growing up around me. And that was because as my energy went into the earth, I was informing her, and then she was informing me. And so I looked into that weed, and that weed in particular was really good for upper respiratory. And at the time I was having great difficulty with my asthma, and I wanted to heal it, and I was working on healing my upper respiratory. And here it was. So that's kind of, what we're doing. We're getting information and we're giving information. And when you know that, you can interact with that or in this manner consciously. Well, how delicious is that, King?
Absolutely. And information is light, which is
Yes.
codes, which is data, which is packets of all that is streaming through, that comes out in different ways. So as you were talking about that, we take from it and then breathe back into it. So then whatever the right number is, you multiply that by we'll say Lisa's, right? Just Lisa's multidimensionality, right? So you don't have enough fingers, toes, strands of hair to do that, but we'll just go like that, her multidimensionality, right? And think of the replication, the reformation, and the blossoming of that, and then do it by all of the other things. And as each one changes, as they come into contact with it, then they have had that expansion, and so it changes it again.
Well, and to that end, I want to say, because this is actually the first time we've done a live at this time of night that wasn't one of my intuitive reading sessions. And I want to acknowledge that we do have 10 folks watching. And Cece, actually, who has been present for some of my lives, asked, does anyone ever comment, or is this a listen only? And to speak to that exactly, no, this is part of the reason we're doing this live. I do have this up here where I can see your comments. It is a bit of a delay sometimes, but I will be checking your comments. If you have any questions or things like that you want to add, it is very much encouraged, because that is exactly what Lisa and BZ are speaking on here. So absolutely. And thank you, Fawn, my lovely Fawn. She actually answered CC and said, yeah, jump in, we comment. And so I love Fawn. She's my Lisa in Florida. And I just love her. Thank you so much for being here, Fawn. I want to say, I want to just acknowledge Bailey Lane is in the house, Fawn Denmark, Team Trump. I know who that is. Thank you. He's got a group where we go all the Great Awakening. And CC is in the house. Lori Wheeler is in the house. We do have 9 other folks. Well, we have 9 total. And I want to say to anyone that does come in or is there now, feel free to say, just say hello, ask any questions, share this please around, because this is a huge moment for all of humanity, period, as far as I'm concerned. And I wanted to share, I shared with the 2 of you privately earlier that we've had a lot of comments already from a lot of folks who did feel exactly the same way, that this is very encoded. This living document, this speech, it was encoded, is encoded, and it means way more than we even can glean right now, I feel.
Well, yeah, and I agree with that. The only way that if I was phrasing it, is the gleaning, because so we're going to get to some of the paragraphs where we'll say so President Trump is speaking directly to each individual and calling you out, calling you forth, asking you to step up, show up, and contribute to what you agreed to do before you got to the planet this time. So the the coalescing and gathering of that exponential growth is also sending telemetry back, right? So back to the ground source, to the allies, you know, in which are the non-local sources. Okay, there's other allies too, but what I'm talking are the non-local allies, and that telemetry is going forth so that there will be an exchange of that energy frequency and a connection. So, you know, we've talked before about, well, just, you know, raise your hand, I'm all in. Well, this is asking you to do the same. And you can do it. And it's also the moments right now where, you know, there is no more hiding and you're not small. And, you know, the waiting for, or the sitting in the Barca Lounge or getting the memo on this, this is as close as you're going to get to a memo, you know, about all of it happening now, but it does not happen unless you participate. Because that's being a sovereign being, and that's being a powerful creator. Powerful creator beings don't just sit around on the curb going, okay, well, someone will let me know, you know, when it's time to go eat or whatever it is. It doesn't work that way. So you want to jump in? We'll go to the next paragraph.
Sure. I just wanted to say real quick that Cece was saying that she would just listen because she's not sure of the speech. So let me just reiterate that what we're doing here this evening is actually part 2. Cece, part 1 and 1A, Lisa weighs in, is on the channel for you to take a look at. The speech that we are decoding here was President Trump's address to the nation last night from the Oval Office, because it's way more than what we all think it's about. And there is a link to directly to BZ took, there's a link to the White House where you can see the words, but BZ also took that link and made it into a PDF that can be easily downloaded and printed if you like. And
or
I'm
put on your phone or any of that kind of
right. And so I am attempting to put it over in the chat on the other. I only have 3 different I only have 3 different screens trying to go here at once, so I'm going to be quiet and do that. So if anybody would like to go and do that, or at least have a copy of the speech, what we did was number the paragraphs so that we could go through it. And so you guys go ahead and talk amongst yourselves while I try to.
We're on paragraph 6. Our team is the best. This is President Trump reading his speech. Our team is the best anywhere in the world. At the very start of the outbreak, we instituted sweeping travel restrictions on China and put in place the first federally mandated quarantine in over 50 years. And so that was a piece that struck both myself and Sheila when we were reading it. And for those who maybe didn't watch the other ones, when this came out, we were going to get together anyways. I said, you know, I have a feeling it would be good to talk. And then a little later, I heard that he booked the speech. I said, well, that's obviously, we're doing a prequel to that. And beforehand, Sheila said, well, what are we doing a preview of? I said, I don't know. And then I said, oh, I guess the speech is what we're doing. Anyways, so what we did was we went through and made notes. And I said, actually, I mentioned in that first one that we would do that. So a number of people liked, Sheila, I'll get yours too, if it works with you, and putting up our versions with the notes so people can see that. I'd love to, you know, have them make their own, because as each being looks at it, more things are revealed and decoded, which helps everybody.
Well, I'm sorry, I tried to put this so everybody knows. I don't really know what I'm doing, so there's that. But I tried to put the link in the comments, and it won't let me because it's a link. So all you have to do is go to the channel. You should see the Decoding presidential address. I think it's 31120. And in the show more section, there are links in that video. Just go to the show more section and you can click on it there and go from there. I apologize, but apparently it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's right on the front page of the IUB. So one of the things that I haven't had a chance to do, but I would suggest, is look up what were the things surrounding the federally mandated quarantine that he talks about 50 years ago, and not the Wikipedia version of that, but the actual in-depth version of that. I think there's some information there that is being pointed to and highlighted. We declared a public health emergency and issued the highest level of travel warning on other countries as the virus spread its horrible infection. So the horrible infection is something that I underlined. This is not talking about beer virus, because we could all point to many different things that have happened in the same chronological span of time that have caused far more deaths and far more things than this.
Yeah.
So the horrible infection is actually referring to a horrible infection, which this document is actually referring to, and bringing a call to arms, a call to consciousness, a call to eradicating. And that horrible infection has, scourge one might say, but it has multiple levels to it as well, with the financial slavery being the top tier. Again, we talk about below the fold of revelations that are coming out, the human trafficking and stuff below that, and others. And yes, I said that in the right order. So again, that's another thing. Those are not only noticings. If you were just going to notice and go, huh, you realize that seems to be an out of specific languaging, out of place given, what you can see. So anybody have anything on paragraph 6 you wanted to add?
Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, something that I highlighted was our team is the best anywhere in the world. Yes. And you know what came to my mind was how planet Earth is standing room only. To get in, you got to know what you're doing in the game of transforming from dark to light.
Right.
And we would be that team he's referring to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
all of us.
Yeah,
that is another component of the call to action, right? And in the directive that we spoke about. Yes.
Yeah.
He doesn't
and
say.
Thank you for that. Going back to the 50 years piece. I want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Well, and it's didn't talk about our team, our coronavirus team, right? So there is a reason. All these things are here for a certain reason, and if you just think, again, like we've talked about, why we did the setup video of notice, and then and all of those things, you'll start to just notice. You don't have to ascribe any motive or agenda or objective or whatever. Just go, and as you see, you'll actually, it's almost like the words on the paper have, like a cityscape. There's different peaks and valleys to the weight, to the gravitas of the different things, to the neighborhoods, to the frequencies that are going on, to the interconnected highways. Some may be a huge highway interchange, some may be just a country road, as where it's leading you and where it's bringing you to, where it's allowing your contributions, your energy frequency, your telemetry and innate intelligence, and your specific gifts, why you specifically are on the planet at this moment, to come and feed back into this document, which is the unwinding and unbinding of it all. And for those who are waiting that something would happen,
it's happening.
yeah, just saying.
Right. Well, I want to say that Team Trump said alliances, off Earth, SSP Space Force. Although we did kind of cover that in the first one, I feel like I wanted to say that I feel like that is actually more than that. Yes, I feel it's so multidimensional that there are those that will hear this speech, read this speech, and think, oh, he's only talking about the other countries, our allies in these other countries. But he doesn't specify. And personally, I feel it is very multidimensional. Yes, he is speaking about the allies that are part of the SSP, part of the Space Force. But he's also speaking about all of humanity that is waking up and participating in this as well. I personally,
and they're multidimensional components.
Right, and thank you. That's a very good point. Our multidimensional components. That's something that we've talked a lot about in different conversations on Conscious Conversations Central about what we're doing in the dream space. I'm way more than just Sheila Corona sitting in this chair having a conversation with you all. I'm also a commander on one of those spaceships, and I know this now. I'm also a communications director on one of those spaceships, and I know that now. I'm also, we all are. And as the veil lifts, we will begin to feel and know ourselves on these other levels. And so in answer to that, Team Trump, that personally, that's what I'm feeling he meant by that. He's acknowledging that in regards to that. Now, in paragraph 6 for me, I was reminded again of, especially since Lisa and I just did this recording where she weighed in, and she reminded me of her essay, which again, in 1A, you can find it. Back in December of 2017, Lisa wrote an essay in regards to the mind virus that has infected humanity. And quite frankly, especially, when he talks about that horrible infection, because there are loads of folks who are, we call them sleepers, but they're also there's a lot of folks that are terribly infected with this mind virus that actually sort of perpetuates that sleep or the desire for conformity. And so I'm reminded of that in that particular paragraph.
And it has gotten to an emergency level, and the universal immune system was triggered and has kicked in. And I feel like he's referring to that as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
So Sheila, can you pull up that picture for a minute? Because I think this is a good segue to that.
Absolutely. Now, I want to ask you guys, so somebody get ready to answer this question for me. Oh, I think I picked the wrong one. Hold on. That's just us again. Let me stop sharing. I can find the right one.
That was kind of fun.
Okay, what in the world happened to it? I know it's there. Hold on, ladies. What I was gonna, okay, I was gonna ask that question and I'll be able to see it over there.
Oh, okay.
Okay, here we go. it would be better if I had it up already. All right, here we go. So this is what BZ wanted to share. And so
this is in this is in the original picture that I saw, that where the videos came in on, but
shoot, it doesn't look like it's sharing. No, yes, wait a minute. It's such a delay when I'm looking over here.
Notice that too.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yes, it just now came up. So go ahead, BZ.
So this is not the original picture that I'm going to tell you the information that came in through, but it struck me, the photograph I saw was taken in China. It was, there weren't cars around. It was a gentleman, a citizen on the street. And then there was another man who was aiming a tool at him, and it was in the beginning stages. So maybe, like I said, I think the photograph might have been taken 8 or 10 days ago, so a long time ago, given all the iterations that we've gone through. The one thing I will mention is that the timing was still in the point where it was the initial intention of this being released was just dissipating before that inversion had fully happened, so from the dark to the light. That was why I went on that point about what Lisa was talking about. And if you look, you'll see that in theory, and I put the supposition that the tool they were using in the first photograph, which we can't find, we may find it, may have been to do what I got the information about, which is because in theory they're using this tool to register someone's temperature to then say, oh yeah, you've got the coronavirus. Okay, it could be hot, you could be running, you just could have done exercise. So, I mean, any doctor will tell you, well, that's kind of silly. But anyways, but what hit me was that they were taking the temperature aimed right at the pineal gland. And so the video that came in was information, was this tool was a tool to register the level at which the pineal gland had been activated, decalcified, and was opening. And so those beings were picked up if they had shown not aligned, compatible to the negatively polarized powers that were over there, right? And quarantine. So that kind of a la Men in Black, you know, with the thing that makes you forget, sort of a thing.
Right.
And it was very dramatic when I you know, we've talked about this before, where the whole rest of the quote unquote world just slowed down and went to fade as if it was a, you know, movie shot, and everything slowed and it got to the point. It was just me meeting this image and all of the telemetry that was coming from that to show me what was going on real time. And it then jumped, let me see ahead. So the inversion happened. And so where we are now, where it is absolutely a cover, but it's gone from dark to light. So now it is being used as a tool to move itself forward. So it just strikes me as very interesting that in, you know, this foreign virus and all that, that I could be completely wrong. It could be commonplace and has been for years, that if you want to take someone's temperature, you point a thing right there, putting your gland, and I don't think so, but you know, stranger things have happened. It just struck me that it was much more meaning to that.
Well, when you first brought this up, I felt into what you were saying, and I want to make sure that this is that what you just said is clear for everyone, because you know the truth of it is I've been hanging out with you a bit, VZ, and I can I don't know, it's like I can read you on a lot of different levels, and sometimes I think it might not be so for some folks. So what you're saying is you saw a picture, not that specific one, but very similar to it. with that particular type of instrument is meant to show that a temperature is being taken by pointing this instrument at the area of the pineal gland. And what you received was sort of a download or a vision of how this may be used or could have been used or was being used before this inversion that you spoke of.
Right. So it showed me before the inversion, traveled through the inversion, and then to where we are now.
During this vision that you had.
The video, yeah.
The video that you received. Okay. In your head.
It plays just like you hit the button on the, if you go to YouTube, you go watch a video, you hit play and it plays. And that's just.
I realize that's why. Yeah, because because I've been around you a bit now. I kind of got that, but I also know that there's some new viewers in the house that may not, and that's why I wanted to do this and say it in my language to see if it makes sure. So what you saw was what it may have been meant for. You saw the inversion of it, and when you first shared this with me, this information, I was reminded very clearly that, well, first of all, we have more than just our physical body. We have these energetic bodies that extend out past our physical body, and all of them carry DNA and different information in those fields. And so when you said that, I was also reminded of a channeling by Cryon some years ago in regards to the fact that DNA is multidimensional, and that eventually the scientists on this planet will be able to read it in that way. And so it's totally, absolutely plausible of what you're saying there. But I also wanted to be clear that what you were saying is that, okay, that might have been the intent, or because we've seen a lot of this lately. It could be, okay, yeah, sure, maybe the intent was this thing, pick a thing, doesn't even matter, was going to be that thing that was going to be the depopulation thing that was going to take us all down. But source, and quite frankly, the rest of us,
yeah,
who are multidimensional, who are on the case, I see what you're doing there, and no, and flip it around.
Yeah, the molecular, in essence, what happens in reality in tangible form, the molecular structure of the technical instrument is reconfigured because it's not a match to where the energy frequencies are. So you may take the thing and you point the thing at someone and you go bing, and maybe it was the Men in Black thing and it makes you forget everything. And now it goes bing and you go, hey, thanks for cleaning off my windshield. Wow, I could, kind of.
Now I can see clearly.
I love that, and I know that there will be those out here that can relate to that, because there's a lot of folks who have shared that they've been getting that chemtrails are no longer what they used to be or what we used to think they were. And so that makes a lot of sense to me. Again, because there's a whole lot of stuff going on multidimensionally that we are all participating in, even if we don't know it or remember it. Because like I said, I know that I am these other things. Do I know the day-to-day goings on that ship? Oh, no, I do not. And quite frankly, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be trusted with that information because I have a big mouth. So, I wanted to point that out.
Okay, let's go on to paragraph 7. And I don't have any notes on that one, so I'll just read it. And taking early intense action, we have seen dramatically fewer cases of the virus in the United States than are now present in Europe.
I have something on that.
I was going to say, I take that back because I have something on that too. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, because when President Trump initiated a lockdown on China, specifically about coming here, he took a lot of heat, and the whole racist card came out again. And quite frankly, I'm really glad that he did that in the way that he did. And again, these restrictions are not what we think they are on any sort of level. There has been, and I also see this in a whole lot of other 3D ways too, because there has been intense action being taken since this cat took office. Let's just be real. And so that was what I had on that, BZ.
Okay, so Lisa, do you have something, and then I'll go with what just came in?
Yeah, what came in for me was, it was a beautiful opportunity for people to expose their hand, because what it did was it really demonstrated the people that are talking out of both sides of their mouth, because they called them out for it, and then later, they turn around and want to call them out for just the opposite thing. They're saying they're revealing their hand, because really that was the correct action. And if they were revealing that they didn't have our best interest at heart, that isn't the game they're playing, even though they're purporting to be your best friend. They're acting as your worst enemy. And that this moment in particular really highlighted that for me. So that was really shining light on that for me.
What came in as I was reading that is actually what I feel it's specifically speaking to. So I read it again. And taking early intense action, we have seen dramatically fewer cases of the virus. You realize that in a lot of other places, not so much in this particular thing, but in a lot of other places, it's specificity, either COVID-19 or the coronavirus. I haven't actually done a count in here, but it's changed to foreign virus, the virus, right? So those are different with specificity and particularity. Notice those are different entities, different structures, different venues, different supply chains, different supply lines. Do you see what I'm getting? So what came through for me on this is dramatically fewer cases of the virus in the United States. So that's a two videos came through simultaneously, showing as if you had two trains. One, the virus in uppercase, which is active, non-contained, and imminent threat posing actors of the Illuminati, of the capital and V capital of the virus in the United States. The second train is the virus in lowercase of human trafficking in the United States. Then are now present in Europe. Okay, so again, look at things, because it's multidimensional. Look at all the things that we talked about this a bit last night and in the setup to part one. All the things that have been going on into place. I think it was paragraph 2 or something last night, where it's a reverse flow chart that points and shows to you in future proofs past why all of the actions and things have been taken, because it's now, so now you've moved, actions were taken, okay, seemingly random, seemingly don't mean anything. Now you come forward and you look back and you go, oh yeah, because you did this and this and this and that, all run the tracks for what needed to happen. So what this is referring to is, again, same thing, uppercase the and virus and lowercase the and virus that are now present in Europe has to do the same thing, the trafficking, human trafficking, and actually the financial slavery, but also the live, active, and direct threat assets that are not in quarantine, they're not captured, of the Illuminati. So again, when you look to tie in the piece of the reverse flow chart, the war game was already scheduled, troops already deployed, just magically happened to be right at the right time for this document to unfold. Hey, they're already, but they don't have any masks, they don't get a lot of sanitizers, but it's okay, you know, don't worry about that. Right? So they're over there, where? In Europe. And the flights can't go from here. So your egress in non-delineated routes of egress to specific destinations of egress, reading, you know, like Cuba and so on and so forth, have all been curtailed. So that is what, so this is what I'm talking about. The decoding comes through. When I read that, well, I don't have anything on that, and I read it, I said, okay, well, I take that back, because those are the things that came through. So,
Well,
and that's also telling me that something between last night and now has either been given the go, green lighted, which I believe that's the case. And I don't believe it's got to the stage of committed and completed, but it's been given the go.
well, based on what you just said there, I went back through the entire thing, and I'd like to point out that the coronavirus specifically is mentioned one time,
Right.
in paragraph 1, as he's introducing the reason for the speech.
Mhm.
And that is all. It is not mentioned again by name at all.
And never
And so
COVID-19.
and never that. No, never that.
All right. So see, that's it's very interesting how, again, the decoding. So all of that is very important and is a huge, again, future proves past. So we're now the future for last night's the past of this supposed speech about, right? And so you can see it makes sense, because obviously if you're doing a marketing piece about putting people putting people at ease, that he's on top, he's a commander-in-chief, he's on just purely linear marketing, right? So he's on top of the coronavirus, he's countering, you know, all of the other politicians and the news media and all that kind of stuff, right? Then you do, because that's what politicians do, you hammer down your talking points. What you're talking about is the coronavirus. I'm protecting the coronavirus. We're in charge. Coronavirus. We have a plan, right? So you hammer it, man. You say that sucker a bunch of times. It's basic PR 101. Okay.
Yeah.
So we
No,
have a
you're exactly
4-page
right.
document.
Every other word. I
Right.
mean,
A 4-page document, and it's only mentioned once as the setup piece, the metaphor for which this is about, the ruse, right? And it's not even an uppercase. It's not, you know, the coronavirus. It's the coronavirus.
yeah, no,
So
you're
that's
right.
a you know, a notice and a and a
Yes, indeed. Now, we didn't tell everybody when we started this, but I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to acknowledge some more comments, and then I want to tell everybody that's listening, because we now have 13 people watching and listening. What we're going to do is we're breaking this up into little pieces so that the videos will render a little faster. So I invite you all, I'm going to read some of these comments and share them with everyone. But we're going to invite you all to stay right where you are, because we're all going to take a little tinkle break, because, you know, I drink a lot of water, and come right back and start a new one and continue on.
Well, how will they find us?
How will they find us? They will come to Conscious Conversation Central out on YouTube, and it will be live again. It'll be a
Cool.
new live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And
they'll figure it out, I guess, because I'm just staying.
they
I'm in the
I-
crystal room, so come find me.
yeah, you guys will find us again. You know,
I'm
they
in the
know
crystal
the
room,
drill.
so you have to come find me.
Nice.
Right.
Come
So
with me in the crystal room.
I wanted to say hello to Carpe Diem. That person said aloha from Maui. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. We also have, I'm trying to scroll down, but it keeps wanting to scroll. Red Fox Wisdom, whom I would love to thank for your comments on the original videos. Thank you so much for finding us and joining the conversation. She in particular said she felt it was coded speech as well. She says, as I understand, chemtrails have been taken over by Trump and the formula he is using. She also said, is doing the same thing to grays, reptilians, and other dark races that they are doing to us. Also doing other things, but not the same harmful stuff being used against us as previous. Yes, Team Trump said he had closed on China. Yes, China was not allowed into the country early on. I think we probably addressed that. Let's see. And I guess that's about it. Let me see. Anything else? Nobody had, okay. So I think that's what, yes, you're right. Fawn Denmark said, you notice he said that he was helping small businesses, but nothing about large corporations. Well, they don't really need any help, do they?
No, because they're all making the Pleiades. When you hear the thing, well, this is up topic, so.
Right. No, that's right. So we're gonna shut this down for just a few minutes. I'm gonna hit the ladies first, and then I will
5-minute
begin.
break, and we'll see you in.
That will like less than 5 minutes. We'll be back live again. I hope you guys will all come and join us.
Till next time.
Yeah, till 5 minutes from now.